South Africa had bribed senior FIFA officials on 2 occasions to better their chances of hosting the World Cup.
Dang, they was bribing?
The whole continent.
We have. Why South Africa's 2010 World Cup was the worst and best ever. Let's go ahead and leave a like, man. Link to this vid will be in the description. Let's check it out. Ooh, hey, that soccer ball like is crazy. That's fire. Go ahead and like this video to get that soccer ball like, you heard?
52 nations from all over the globe are about to meet in the world's biggest sporting event. There'll be ever-presents like Brazil and newbies like Qatar, all in one place. Talking of firsts, let's go back to the first World Cup that I can clearly remember and take a look at the 2010 South Africa edition. Apologies if that made any of you feel old. Everyone seems to love this World Cup, and on the face of things, this was a great World Cup. The music, the players, underdog stories and giant killings. This World Cup had it all, but at the same time, it really didn't. Firstly, we'll start out with the most important aspect of football, the ball itself. These days, everybody loves the Jabulani. The way it moves in an unpredictable manner can be massively entertaining to watch, in small doses. A lot of people have let nostalgia and Diego Forlan compilations trick them into thinking that this ball added excitement to the World Cup, but it didn't. If anything, it did the opposite. If a player wanted to hit the ball any further than 10 feet, the Jabulani would become airborne and never really came back down. Free kick after free kick went over, crosses soared out of play, and as every goalkeeper went to take a goal kick, spectators in Row Z must have been clutching their vuvuzelas and praying the ball wouldn't hit them. It was terrible and was all down to incompetence from FIFA and the design team at Adidas behind the ball. Now I understand, in theory the roundest ball in the world sounds perfect and makes complete sense. But you're telling me that a group of scientists and one of the biggest sporting brands in the world didn't manage to work out that their ball was too round? It's ridiculous.
Dang, how could you have a ball that's too round?
How did FIFA do no quality control and actually check the ball out with some half decent tests so they could see the ball would not be up to standard for a World Cup? We had to see on 64 separate occasions some of the most one-dimensional and boring football to ever grace a World Cup, simply because it was too risky for teams to play the ball in the air. I'll get back onto this later, but I want to talk about a more important subject first, the controversy behind South Africa hosting the World Cup. We've all heard about the corruption at FIFA, which allegedly led to Qatar receiving the role of hosting this year's World Cup, but many people have forgotten the fact that in 2015...
When was this made? Well, this year's US is hosting it, y'all. US is hosting it. I don't know when this video was made.
We found out that South Africa had bribed senior FIFA officials on 2 occasions to better their chances of hosting the World Cup.
Dang, they was bribing?
The whole continent of Africa deserved this World Cup. In no world should the United States have hosted the World Cup before a country in Africa had. Especially given we'd already...
Facts, because we don't... Hey, I'm not going to speak for other Americans, but I know a lot of Americans that we not even like into soccer like that. You know what I'm saying? But hey, it's nice that we hosting, bruh. But I feel like a lot of us don't really care that much, bruh. Some of us. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of us that do, but we NBA fans, NFL fans, you feel me?
Seen their North American neighbors Mexico host the competition twice.
But Mexico,
in the previous 25 years. But a continent's first World Cup shouldn't have come like this. Africa's first ever World Cup will forever be tainted with the fact it should have never been there in the first place. But to be honest, I find it hard to blame South Africa. For years and years, FIFA have underfunded and ignored African football. Because in their eyes, why would they spend money and time sorting out a corrupt system and fixing it, when they themselves would prove to be a corrupt organisation which only cared about money? What made this worse was the problem
money
with
make the world go around,
and Western
y'all.
media. Africa is very often ignored or misportrayed. And so there's nobody asking questions as to why the continent had never hosted a World Cup. The media rarely covers the best sporting and cultural accomplishments of the continent, so giving it a World Cup was the least of FIFA's concerns. And so, a desperate national FA felt the need to bribe them. In no way do I at all condone what South Africa did. I more just understand it, and I don't think it's at all comparable to the Qatar situation. It was more a situation of 2 wrongs not making a right, but in hindsight, the competition had already started out adversely. Moving on to just football, the sport was certainly in a transitional time. Technology had become more important, and off-the-field issues such as mental health were starting to become more and more understood. The game was moving away from the flair and beauty of individual players built into a squad that we saw in the 90s and 2000s, and more about the team working as one. Now in theory, you'd think this may suit a team like previous World Cup winners Italy, who'd been so used to having a compact defensive unit working together for years. But like I mentioned earlier, there was one big problem: the Jabulani. Without the ability to play the ball forward quickly...
Hey, this ball must have been terrible, y'all. Because we keep coming back to this Jabulani, bro. This ball must have been trash.
It meant the Italians would struggle to break teams down. Italian domestic football at the time was all about slowing the pace of the game down while out of possession or when defending a lead, but quick passes in attacking phases allowed them to break through defences when a goal was needed. Of course, the Jabulani wasn't the only problem with the Italy side of the World Cup. Marcello Lippi's insistence on his sides consisting of 2 separate blocks didn't necessarily work the way you'd think, and instead of making each section of the side work more as a team, it created division. Lippi would also start his team with 3 different formations in each of the group stage games, leading to confusion in the team and his side being knocked out in the group stage. With teams already struggling to play well, having the supposed best national team in the world being out of the competition before it even really started would just hinder how the football elitists would view the tournament. But even Italy wouldn't be the worst of the world's big hitters. France would maybe have the most chaotic team of any team in recent history. First of all, as I'm sure many of you are aware, France should have never even been at the World Cup. They only made it to South Africa through the playoffs, in which Thierry Henry cheated, using his hands
I know
to keep
that
the
guy.
ball
He played for Arsenal, didn't he? Plus, shout out to Arsenal. I seen that y'all won the, I think it's called Premier League. Like, I'm not really, I know a little bit of soccer. I don't know a lot, but you know what I'm saying? Or football, excuse me. They won the Premier League, so shout out to them. I think it's Premier League, right?
For William Gallas to grab a winner against Ireland. It's fair to say that France were destined for failure before even getting on the plane. Then once in South Africa, forward Nicolas Anelka clashed with manager Raymond Domenech, leading to him being sent home early. In retaliation, the French players went on strike, refusing to train. As you can imagine, with all this happening and a ball the players didn't know how to use, France didn't do too well. In fact, that's a massive understatement. They did terribly. Winning just 1 point and coming last in a group with Uruguay, Mexico and South Africa, France probably had the worst World Cup of anybody. And with 2 European giants having been knocked out in the group stage, a stigma around the tournament would start to grow in mainland Europe. That the competition was of particularly low quality, and to be honest, it's hard to disagree with. Just 4 of the 16 games played in the second half of the tournament ended with the victors winning by more than a single goal. Now I love a scrappy, tense game as much as everyone, but when almost every game becomes one, it turns from being tense to being boring. If a team went 1-0 down, it almost looked impossible to win, because your chances of scoring twice in a game looked nearly undoable now the lower level opposition had been knocked out. And with more neutrals than ever before watching the knockouts, the tournament seemed more like a punishment than something that could be enjoyed. As I mentioned earlier, football was in a very significant transitional period, and many teams were seeing the last of an aging group of players. Of the big nations, France, Argentina, England, Italy, Brazil, Portugal, and even Germany were all in a period of transition, either seeing their last tournament with a group of players, or their first with a fresh bunch. The only 2 sides that really looked to have a well-rounded squad were Spain and the Netherlands. You'll never guess who made the final. When you have this many of the big nations without a squad as good as you'd expect.
Who won the World Cup in 2010, y'all? Like, I hope he says who made the finals and who won, bro, because, hey.
The quality of the competition was undeniably not as high as usual. You may think that would be a positive. It would allow a more competitive tournament, which surely would be more interesting. But the problem was, with the Jabulani, every ounce of entertainment in each fixture was sapped out, and nobody was enjoying themselves. With every unexpected positive, there's a negative to cancel it out.
I knew it was going to blame the ball.
As a 7-year-old from London, this is my first real experience of proper international football. Sure, I'd have seen qualifiers and friendlies, but with England having missed out on Euro 2008, and me having been around 2 or 3, I'd barely have been able to remember anything from the 2006 World Cup. I didn't quite understand how much of a mess the England national team actually were, but I'd collected all of the England match attacks and I was ready for us to bring football home, starting with a comprehensive victory against the annoying USA. With the mighty Rob Green in goal, nothing could go wrong. Well, no big deal. The US were probably our hardest opponent. We'd batter Algeria. Oh, never mind. Next up was only Slovenia. And look at that, we won. Despite a rusty start, England were on the up going into knockouts, with the players finally having gotten used to the Jabulani. All of the technological issues from FIFA were out of the way, and nothing could stop the 3 Lions from breezing through to the quarters. Oh, for Now, of course, for many, this moment is probably one of the greatest World Cup moments of all time. The English aren't exactly loved universally, but a 7-year-old me was absolutely fine with it, to be honest. For some reason, I didn't actually care very much. The Scottish half of my family must have gotten to me or something. Anyways, by now you can see that this tournament certainly had its highlights, especially when you can go back and look at them without having to live through all the dross. But there had clearly been something wrong with this World Cup. However, there was one shining light. A Ghanaian side filled with a mix of experience and raw talent were making waves. And having made it through the tightest group in the tournament, Ghana had beaten America in the last 16. And if they could get past Uruguay,
they got lucky, bruh. If they beat us, they got lucky. On me.
Then they'd become the first African team to ever reach the semi-final of a World Cup. And all this would be occurring in the first ever World Cup in Africa. This Ghana side were destined for greatness. And on the stroke of half-time, they went ahead through...
Dang, that's dope, though. That's really dope. The first ever World Cup in Africa was in South Africa. And Ghana was the very first team to go into the, what do you say?
To ever reach the semi-final of a World Cup.
The semi-finals?
And all this would be occurring in the first ever World Cup in Africa.
That's lit.
This Ghana side were destined for greatness. And on the stroke of half-time, they went ahead through Suleimantari. Diego Forlan then equalised after the break, and the game went to extra time. With just moments left on the clock, Ghana saw Luis Suarez block a goal-bound header on the line. Except, of course, he used his hands. It's funny because you'd never have expected cheating from someone like Luis Suarez either. He always seemed like a good egg. I'm sure you all know how this went. Jan missed the spot kick, and
Hold on. Why wasn't he allowed? Was he not the goalie or something? Is that the reason why he couldn't use his hand? Was he like a...
Uruguay went on to win on penalties. The clash between the cheating from someone like Luis Suarez either. He always seemed like a good egg. I'm sure you all know how this went. Jan missed the spot kick, and Uruguay went on to win on penalties. The clash between the two sides was like a metaphor for the whole World Cup. So close to greatness.
So Ghana really could have went to the finals, bruh? I'm sick, bro. Ghana. They won. Oh my gosh, that's sickening, dog. Because he blocked it with his hand, so they don't even count the goal. They get like a penalty kick or something. Like what happens if they block it with their hands? Because that really should have went in and Ghana should have won. But instead, I don't know what happens after that. But then they go in a penalty or the whatever they call it, overtime where they kick to win. And Uruguay wins. Ah, that's sickening.
So you all know how this went. Jan missed the spot kick, and Uruguay went on to win on penalties.
Oh, a spot kick. Okay, yeah. That's like the free kick between him and the goalie, right?
The clash between the two sides was like a metaphor for the whole World Cup. So close to greatness, but in the end, controversies got in the way. Like I mentioned earlier, the whole knockouts were a bit of a letdown. Spoiler alert for those who somehow don't know who won the World Cup, it was Spain. Pep Guardiola's Barcelona side had been at the forefront of the global footballing transition, and Spanish clubs were seeing more success in Europe, meaning tiki-taka was on top of the world. Mix into that a ball that works best with short passes back and forth, rather than counter-attacking long ball football. And Spain clearly had a huge advantage in this World Cup. People often look at the possession stat as one for dominance in a game, using it as an indicator for who was the more attacking side. But instead, Spain...
So basically saying that Spain had an advantage because they wasn't really a long kicking team. Like there was more of a short pass team rather than a, you know what I'm saying, a long forward kicking team. Okay.
And still do, in my opinion, to be defensive. To put it very, very simply, they'd keep the ball until they scored a goal. And once they'd scored, they'd continue to just hold the ball, preventing the opposition from creating any chances whatsoever.
That has to be boring, bro.
Spain had over 60% possession in 6 of their 7 games, conceding just twice in the entire tournament, with both goals coming in the group stages. In a tournament where teams were struggling to create meaningful chances anyway, the eventual winners deciding to make every game into a bore fest just made things even worse. Now at this stage, I've made the tournament look like a failure, but let's not forget, if you ask football fans what their favourite recent World Cup was, 9 out of 10 of them choose this one, and there has to be a reason for that.
Yeah, we need to know why.
I mentioned the relatively boring knockout stages a lot, but I didn't mention the fact that there were still some great moments within them. From Van Bronckhorst's screamer against Uruguay in a 3-2 semi-final, to Germany bagging 8 goals in just 2 games, any game not involving Spain did have some good moments. And
not involving
the
Spain.
group stages may have actually seen the best of
Yo, Spain must have been terrible to watch, y'all. The way he talk about them holding the ball, the short passes, the slow, you know what I'm saying? Probably a very, very slow-paced game, bruh. Very slow-paced game from Spain.
Jabulani. We've all seen what Forlan could do with it, but it also made each group a lot tighter, with many teams still being in the running going into the final game. Even if you look at the star performers, they came in all shapes and sizes, young or old. Where else would you see a 21-year-old Thomas Müller battle it out with a 31-year-old Diego Forlan for player of the tournament? Legends were made and defeated, even if it may not be in the way you'd want or expect. Look, nostalgia is a powerful thing, But something being completely timeless is even more powerful. Going from the start of the World Cup, there are aspects of it which are still unbelievable to this day. Starting off with two of the greatest World Cup songs ever produced. And Waving Flag is truly a masterpiece. When it came to showcasing the culture of South Africa and the continent, whilst mixing it in with the global event that's the World Cup, they did a fantastic job. The purpose of the World Cup is to bring nations from anywhere and everywhere together, where cultures can be understood and appreciated, and it's meant to be a mixing pot of everything great in football. And the South Africa World Cup maybe did it better than any tournament before them. We saw things we'd never seen before in football, the vuvuzela being one of them. At the time, many people hated the noise they produced, but I've personally always been a fan.
So hold on, that thing started in the World Cup? Those things? Bruh.
I don't think there's anything more entertaining than hearing the most obnoxious noise possible from a ridiculous number of people all in one place.
Those things,
and if you
bruh.
fast forward to the present, more and more people agree with me. Like I said, nostalgia is very powerful and tends to make people overrate things from the past. But on the other hand, you could say that something which seems to be better and better as each year goes by may just mean it had been underappreciated at the time. Are we just overrating the Jabulani and vuvuzelas now? Or were we just not ready for them in 2010? It's truly an interesting debate, and the answer probably lies somewhere in the middle. And I said in the title and thumbnail that the South Africa World Cup was terrible, but at the same time, if so many people can see greatness in it, I must be somewhat wrong.
I think he's just upset that his team didn't win, bruh. I think his team was England, right? I think he was upset that England didn't go too far.
It had its faults, but most of them are out of the hands of those that were affected by them. It's not the South Africans' fault that FIFA had completely ignored African football for so long, meaning the only way of being noticed was through money. It's not the players' fault that the Jabulani was so hard to use. It's not Ghana's fault that Luis Suarez and his cheating antics stopped them from making history.
Hey, I ain't even watched the World, but that right there makes me mad, dog. Because Ghana really should have moved on and could have moved on, dog. But dude blocked it with his hands, man. Oh, that should be like a free goal or something, bruh. There's no way. There's no way, y'all.
But they all happened, and maybe I just need to look for the positives in them. Yeah, the 2010 South Africa World Cup wasn't perfect. It certainly wasn't the best on the pitch, and off-pitch manufacturing faults, like an accidentally unusable ball, certainly didn't help. But you know what else isn't perfect? The world. So maybe a World Cup that's both overrated and terrible in terms of footballing quality actually makes it the best World Cup at the same time. I think it's fair to say that anybody's opinion on the 2010 World Cup is likely both right and wrong. And if the upcoming World Cup in Qatar is spoken about...
Oh, 2022. This video was made like 4 years ago. This year's in the US, man. What y'all think? Who's gonna win it this year, y'all?
Anywhere near as much as the 2010 one still is, 12 years down the line, then it's probably been very successful. What I'm trying to say is, despite my title saying how bad the 2010 World Cup was, what made the South Africa World Cup so good was that it was so flawed. I might have been right in saying that the South Africa World Cup was the worst football-wise, but what takes place on the pitch is just half of what makes a good World Cup.
The Qatar one was actually the first one I ever watched, bro, because of Mbappe. I was a huge Mbappe fan at the time. I was really into playing FIFA, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to watch this one. And did he show out, bro? Even though he lost to Messi in Argentina, he showed out, bro. France showed out. He definitely did. But that was my first time ever watching a World Cup, and yeah, it was very exciting. I definitely enjoyed that one. So I will be tuned in to this year's for sure. But look, man, comment down below who is going to win this year's World Cup. Who do y'all have? I really don't know, man. I would hope to see Mbappe get one because he's one of my favorite football players right now. But who knows, man? Who knows? But yeah, link to this vid will be in the description, guys. I hope you guys enjoy my reaction, my commentary to this video. Look, man, we're going to be checking out more football videos, World Cup content on the channel because the World Cup is coming up. I gotta get in, you know what I'm saying? I gotta get my mind right for the World Cup and learn as much as I can going into it. You know what I'm saying? So if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. But I hope you guys enjoy this one. Stay tuned next for y'all. Peace.